Kenya shillings 51,729,948,898 shillings in respect of the votes as contained in the schedule, and 4, further makes the policy resolutions contained in the second schedule to the order paper. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay and maybe inform the House that the report has already been tabled, and some of the questions I hear being asked by the Honorable Junet, the answer is in the report.
Okay.
But what he's asking is secure.
Very well. Let's go to order, the next order, please.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
On this particular one, we have let's have Chair Health for your statement now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as you are aware, during the House plenary sitting on Tuesday, 14th April 2020, and pursuant to the provision of Standing Order number 44-2C, the following members requested for statements of various matters related to COVID-19 pandemic. 1, Honorable David Ochieng, MP, Member of Parliament of Ugenya constituency, sought a statement regarding the handling of the body of the late James Oyugi Onyango of Kamuluga, Simuru Kondiek in Ugenya sub-county. And 2, Honorable Caleb Amisi, MP, Member of Parliament of Saboti constituency, sought a statement regarding the safety of healthcare workers while fighting COVID, and more specifically on training being offered to our nurses in the fight against COVID-19, status of distribution of personal protective equipment, transportation of suspected cases to isolation facilities, and whether health workers will be paid risk allowance equals the risk being undertaken, and lastly, on the availability of special isolation and treatment of healthcare workers contracting the virus on line of duty. And 3, Honorable Gabriel Kago, MP, Member of Parliament of Githunguri constituency, sought a statement regarding the public health measures instituted by the government to reduce risk of contracting COVID-19. In particular, the member wanted to know which type of mask the government has recommended for use by members of public, how many institutions and companies have been approved by the government to make these masks for use in the country, both cloth and N95 masks, the production capacity for both types of masks, and whether this production capacity can meet the current demand, the recommended retail price of a single mask for each, both cloth and N95, and finally, measures the government has put in place to ensure the quality, effective masks are affordable and accessible by all members of the public. The committee invited the ministry, and we received the responses. And subsequently, the Cabinet Secretary of Health also wrote to the committee and availed responses on the statements sought by the members, which I beg to submit. Mr. Speaker, I would like, through your guidance, whether you'll allow me to go through the submission, or because of the nature of the questions and the interest.
Now it becomes very difficult to really recognize those particular people. I can see one looks like the chair, Park. Is that him? Let's see.
Mr. Speaker, if I got it correctly, the Chair Health is suggesting that she goes through the submissions, the responses in totality. That, in my view, would take a lot of time. Perhaps if you could direct that she tables them, then we go through them.
Correct.
Then later on we could perhaps address them in some other session.
Now, how big is the document you want to take us through, the statement?
Mr. Speaker, I can take like 2 minutes of each. Its response are very direct. And specifically, if you, I would go through maybe the mask one, I don't know, but I can just go briefly through the answers, because they are very specific.
If you could do a summary.
And summary,
if you could do a summary, that would be fine.
Yes.
Yeah, you actually, you highlight those salient points, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The statement regarding handling of the body of the late James Oyugi Onyango of Kamuluga, Simuru Kodiek in Ugenya sub-county. Honorable Speaker, the ministry said they regret the incidents regarding the burial of the late James Oyugi Onyango, and it was not the wish of the ministry to conduct the burial as it happened at night, which was not in line with the guidelines that promotes a dignified burial process, respect for the deceased, and the respect of the rights of the family. And Honorable Speaker, in regards to whether the WHO guidelines were followed, the Ministry of Health had developed guidelines in line with the WHO guidelines on safety, management, and disposal of human remains in the context of COVID-19 and has been disseminated for use in all counties. In this case, the ministry established that the guidelines were not fully adhered to by the county where the burial was done. And Mr. Speaker, on the question on who made the decision on the manner of disposal of the body and whether the family members of the deceased were involved in the decision on the manner of disposal of the body, the answer was the county health system of Siaya County conducted the burial. Whether an autopsy was conducted on the body of the deceased to ascertain the actual cause of death, according to the information obtained from the county health team, that is the Siaya County, the diagnosis made was based on the clinical criteria for case definition of COVID-19, hence no autopsy was done. Whether the deceased traveled from Mombasa and he was involved in an accident, the ministry said they had no information on the alleged accident. And whether what the ministry is doing to ensure the family of deceased is taken care of because of the trauma and psychological torture, the ministry already dispatched a high-level team from the Director General who visited the home of the deceased and conveyed their apologies to the relatives and the community. And the county health system was advised to organize for psychological support of the family members. And the steps taken to ensure the contact tracing from Mombasa through the entire route was done. The ministry commenced contact tracing immediately in liaison with the respective counties and other government authorities where they got information of his movement. A total of 45 contacts have been identified and are already in quarantine. Whether the ministry is considering exhumation to allow the family to accord the departed a decent burial, considering the infectious nature of the disease, and according to the Public Health Act, Cap 242 section, this is not permissible to safeguard the safety of the community. And what measures are taken to ensure that the manner of the treatment and handling of COVID-19 patients, suspected patients, do not lead to stigmatization and scare from seeking help? The ministry will continue to enforce the guidelines and protocols for management of COVID-19 disease. Further, they will continue to scale up awareness on the pandemic, including addressing the myths and misconceptions. To do this, the community health strategy has been adopted to ensure that communities participate and are fully involved and own the process of adopted approach of testing, isolate, treatment, contact tracing of COVID-19. The community-owned resource persons that include the community health volunteers are spearheading COVID control activities at the community level. I beg to submit. On the
hold on briefly. There are vacant seats in the chamber. Seat number 130, seats number 278, seats number 167, and 162. We need 4 members to come in and take those chairs. The easiest is for us to get those who are in the nearest chamber. That chamber which is ordinarily having a certain name. I mean that waiting room. If we can have 4 members, that would be fine. That is for seats number 130, 278, 167, and 162. Were you progressing or you are finished?
I'm progressing.
You are progressing?
Yes.
What is your point of order, Honorable Wamalwa?
Our last sitting, you're not here, and it's been clear that you must indicate which sitting you want to come. If at all somebody has failed, Mr. Speaker, and in the practice of our last speaker, you need to name them. You can't just say seats. That's what J.B. Muturi did last time, Mr. Speaker. So that next time when you indicate your availability, you should take it seriously, Mr. Speaker.
There are many.
Because people are sacrificing to come to this house at such a time. We are serious, Mr. Speaker. So can you name those seats who are supposed to have occupied them?
Well,
in one way or another, they have failed.
Well, I choose not to name them. And that is my choice.
But Muturi had said.
That is my choice. What I am able to, because I have the names, yes. Sometimes members also have issues. I mean, you could decide that you want to come here And matters that are beyond your, so I will name them when I think I should. If I decide that I'm not going to, like now, I am not going to. So the position is that we need those seats filled. And there are many ways that we can make sure that this information is available for members. I think members, we should not always be looking for, that is the position I've taken. That is the position I have taken. So let's proceed. That is the position I've taken.
Mr. Speaker, I'm on the statement about the mask by Honorable Gabriel Kago MP Githunguri. And Mr. Speaker, I'll go direct to which type of mask.
And briefly, again, as you proceed, if Honorable Chieng is around, he should be allowed, because is he in?
Yeah, he is.
I know he was not among the members who are given an opportunity to be in the chambers. If he's around there, he should be asked to come in.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Let him take one of the seats. Proceed, Chairperson.
Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Health has developed guidance on appropriate use and handling and disposal of masks and recommended fabric for cloth masks. Non-woven face masks, surgical masks, and cloth face masks are recommended for public use. Key specifications include that the material must be latex-free, hypoallergenic, fiberglass-free, fluid-resistant, and 3-ply construction. Masks should be secured with an ear loop, elastic band, or open sleeves to be placed behind the ears or around the head. The Pharmacy and Poisons Board has issued this specification to guide local manufacturers, and further is providing technical support on ground by visiting the local manufacturers and demonstrating to them on good manufacturing practice for masks, protective equipment, and hand sanitizers. Reusable cloth masks should be singly packed and available from authorized dealers. We have the licensed shops, supermarkets, and pharmacies. Honorable Speaker, N95 masks are not recommended to be used by the general public. They are meant for safety and protection of frontline healthcare providers for COVID-19. It is inappropriate by the public denies our frontline soldiers the necessary protection when they need to use it, as pandemic has overwhelmed the global supply of N95 masks. Surgical masks can be used for general public. However, care need to be taken not to compromise.
What is your point of order, Honorable Musimba? Order. What's your point of order, Honorable Musimba? Honorable members, we have also to recognize members who are in other sitting places. So he has to come in and, you know, let's have a member who is outside this particular chamber, and sometimes you'll have an opportunity to be elsewhere. You'll also want to be recognized. Let's have Honorable Musimba is there to raise the point of order. The speaker has different ears where he can, and eyes. So, Honorable Musimba, is it true that you have a point of order?
Yes, Speaker.
Then the members can confirm that that is the position. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With your guidance, Speaker, I was seeking to move an adjournment motion for just about 5 minutes from 12 o'clock. With the indulgence, Speaker, the nation has been subjected to a campaign by the Editors Guild in Kenya, where they have a Sasita campaign, where we seek to recognize all the caregivers, the doctors, indeed our security personnel who have stood on the front line of this COVID-19 issue. And at 12 o'clock today and every Wednesday thereof, they are going to be standing and clapping for these people. So I'm seeking your indulgence to have
let's be clear with what you want. You want us to stop at 12
for just 5 minutes.
For 5 minutes.
5 minutes. And be able to, but in our customary way, we'll be able to stamp our feet
I think so.
in accordance to that campaign. And thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Yours is definitely valid.
Thank you.
It's only the procedure that you are seeking that doesn't seem to be tidy enough. I think
with your guidance, Speaker.
What we will do at that point, it is accepted, but at that point, we don't need any adjournment.
Okay.
We will simply, you know, do whatever is supposed to be done at that point.
Thank you, Speaker.
We will continue consulting and see how best, and of course, you'll also be consulted to see what actually you intended to have so that we can have something at 12 noon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is a chair?
If there is a chair, probably you've earned yourself a chair. No, first of all, you probably would be sitting where somebody else was sitting.
There.
To make it tidy, honorable members, you will have to go to the Sergeant at Arms, Honorable Musimba, so that the matter is done procedurally and in a proper manner, so that you don't sit on a seat that a member is just stepped out to probably have some fresh air and back. Okay, proceed, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the institutions and companies approved by the government to make masks in this country, we have Kikote, Kitui County, which is doing a capacity of 300,000 per day. Tafo mattresses for non-woven fabric for use in making masks. National Youth Service Gilgil that is doing 300,000 per day. National Police Prison Service that is doing 300,000 per day. Rivertex Industry Eldoret that is doing 600,000 per day. We have institutions like Dedan Kimathi, we have Meru County, Muranga County, and Kiambu County that are also doing the masks. What is recommended retail price for a single mask for each type? For both cloth and N95. There are no set minimum prices for medical products and health technologies in Kenya. However, Ministry of Health recommends products used in control of COVID-19 pandemic be declared essential goods under the relevant law so that we can enable the government to set minimum retail price. On what measures the government has put in place to ensure that quality, effective masks are affordable and accessible by all members of the public. One, there is the technical inspectors who are out to ensure that only those masks that meet the standards are in the market through post-marketing surveillance and vigilance. Application for marketing and authorization of products for use in control of COVID-19 are evaluated by experts to ensure the quality, safety, and efficacy is followed. The pharmacy appoints its board technical staff out in the field to offer technical support to manufacturers of relevant masks and preparing a list of essential COVID-19 to be declared as essential commodities for the purpose of price control. And also we are encouraging more local production of PPEs. SONAT EPZ is also in the list, in the process of doing this mask and supporting laboratory testing to assure their quality. Mr. Speaker, for the benefit of the members of public are advised not to buy the masks that are being hawked openly, with the ones that are not in any kind of a package. And number two, to avoid fitting, Mr. Speaker, because we saw in the past members of public fitting the mask. That already is very dangerous for them. And Mr. Speaker, number three also is what we mentioned on the proper use of the mask. It makes no sense for anyone to have a mask, place it on the head or below the chin or under your nose. The purpose of the mask, Mr. Speaker, is for protection of yourself and others. And so, despite the distance, Mr. Speaker, anytime a member of the public is out there, they are all encouraged to wear the mask properly and make sure they are covered from the nose to the chin. I beg to submit, Mr. Speaker. And also a test, because the members are asking, how do you know the right mask? I think if you have a candle and you just blow it with the proper mask that has the three plies, if you blow the candle will not go off. But if you have any form of a mask, whether it's by clothing or even the ones that are labeled surgical, if you blow the candle and it goes off, that means that mask is not protecting you well. So those are some of the things that you can be able to test the mask. But they are already authorized manufacturers in Kenya and producers, and we'll be updating the House as we get the list. I know members also would want to do maybe some for the constituencies, and they would want to know which ones. No,
I would be very encouraged if we were to get a candle and test with you the one you have.
Yes.
Because I'm not very sure.
It's only that I'm not allowed to carry the candle here. I would have done
test it and tell us that you did the right thing. So we will want to open, a few members will be given an opportunity to speak to this. Of course, we will start with Honorable Chieng, who is the one who...
Can I finish and then
there's another one?
Just the last one.
Okay.
The last one was on response to Honorable Caleb Amisi's question, MP Saboti. And this was...
What is it, Leader Majority? Please take your seat, Honorable. Yes. What is it, Leader?
The Speaker, because of the time factor, the last one, she can do it in the afternoon. We have no other statements. So that we have two series. We have a bill and we have a report to adopt before 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Now we are already going to 11. And Mr. Speaker,
Yeah, that is a very genuine
so that
concern.
Honorable Cheng asked, and then two of us, even as Muslims, we have got a problem with, the way barriers are done, despite the COVID-19. We have to speak to it. We don't just, our religion we must dictate for it, the way our brother was buried. So I think the last statement you can do in the afternoon with your permission.
Now let's get, I think that makes perfect sense, Honorable. In any case, if we really want to canvass these statements properly, we probably would want to separate them. If we have too many of them, we'll end up mixing it up.
It's all right, Mr.
Is it possible that we can have it in the afternoon?
Yes,
That would
I'm
be
ready
okay.
to sit in the
So
afternoon
can
and
we start,
present.
of course, with then Honorable Ochieng? I see members who have placed their... What is your point of order? Sometimes if it would be possible, we would allow, I hope it is a, let's have,
Thank you,
serious one.
Honourable Speaker. My point of order is a burning one. Aware that the chairperson for Committee of Health was meant to be responding on some statements. Honourable Speaker, I am raising under Standing Order number 42C, Honourable Speaker, and aware also of your guidelines in respect to questions which you have suspended until further notice, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I know the questions or the members raising hands want to put supplementary questions to the statement that our chair person has given to this House. But, Honourable Speaker, there would be a problem because she may not in confidence, answer or give supplementary answers to those questions, supplementary questions that are going to be asked. I was just going to request, Honourable Speaker, that just like you rearranged these chambers to fit members of Parliament according to the regulations of Ministry of Health, you could still rearrange a launch. Like, for example, your launch, Honourable Speaker,
I don't have a launch.
where the Cabinet Secretary can come and answer questions, especially at this time when we have COVID-19. Honourable Speaker.
Are parliamentary launches.
Yeah, thank you. Honourable Speaker, I just wanted to ask, because there are many statements that members want to sort. Even me, I have a question.
You see, I have a major problem with your approach, Honourable Majority Whip. You take your seat. Number one, I expect you and the leader of majority to be speaking from the same script, because he wants us to save time, and I think I agree with him. Number two, you are a member of the House Business Committee by virtue of your office. These are matters that you would ideally raise there. You don't need to come and raise it in chamber. Unless I am wrong, I think you are a member of the House Business Committee. I mean, majority whip. You have it.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I agree with you that I'm a member of the House Business Committee. But because of the distance required, members are limited. Not all of us are allowed to participate in the House Business Committee.
Majority whip, you know you are not right. You know, most of these things that have been brought to the House were not discussed in chamber. They were passed at the House Business Committee and the leadership, surely which you are part of both. Now, if there is any issue that you would want to raise, I think the most appropriate way to raise it is to either raise it in the House Business Committee or to raise it with your colleague, the House leaders. I think that would be the easier way. Please, let's not waste more time on that particular one. We have heard you, but now use the right procedure. Go and discuss it in the House Business Committee. If you are not in one of the previous ones, you definitely will be in the next one. Then, by the way, you make a lot of sense. The only problem is where you are raising it. But you make a lot of sense for sure. I mean, the chair, health, might probably not have all the answers to some of these specifics. Now, those are the things that you should raise it in the House Business Committee, and you'll be able to probably make a decision there.
Thank you,
Yes,
Honorable Speaker.
leave it
I hear
there.
you. I hear
Yes.
you. I just wanted to ask a supplementary, statement.
No,
I mean,
no, you
question.
will not have both. You will not have both.
That
You will not have both. Let's have Honorable
testing
Ching.
kids, testing
No,
kids,
no, no.
Honorable Speaker,
No,
testing
no.
kids.
I mean, you are being. Let's have Honorable Ching. Please don't. You know, don't take advantage of an opportunity. You rose on a point of order. I give you that opportunity. You've canvassed it. You cannot have again a question, a supplementary question. You are the one who says that he might not even have sufficient answers. So let's have Honorable Ching.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the chairperson of the Committee on Health for a very succinct and honest answer. Mr. Speaker, I sit in the Health Committee, and I was there when this question was answered. It had to be answered 2-3 times because we had to have a back and forth. Mr. Speaker, we are times when we are building the ship, even as we sail. And so there will be lessons to be learned. And above all, I'm happy that the ministry has honestly accepted that in this situation, the law was not followed. This parliament doesn't act in vain, Mr. Speaker. And so we're going to have to ensure that where the law is not followed, those who do not follow the law face the full force of that law. Mr. Speaker, that is what we must do as a House and ensure that in future, because you know, you can't get excited about a disease. It's about excitement that, oh, you know, we discovered this, Mr. Speaker, it will shock you. That this gentleman, the specimen that showed that he was COVID positive was taken after he died. Then 12 hours later, he was buried without a postmortem. So we've decided that because of COVID, we will not do postmortem, but we will just be bundled into shallow graves. Mr. Speaker, it will shock you that now even deaths that can be explained in other ways are being explained using COVID. In this situation, this gentleman had an accident in Awasi where, you know, it was going in a police station. But the ministry is telling us that they have not got any information about this, that they don't even know that an accident happened. So how do you explain whether this death was because of accident, Mr. Speaker, or because of COVID, because COVID was discovered much after he died? Mr. Speaker, so what I want to say, because I know the time constraints, is that we are living in very difficult times. But this cannot make us forget our culture, forget our laws, forget our traditions.
Okay.
The WTO, sorry, Mr. Speaker.
Now you see, let's be brief.
Mr. Speaker, the WHO guidelines require that in burying people who die of COVID, culture, traditions must be respected in all means. And so we'll be moving out because the ministry is saying that we cannot exhume. We have gone to court. We'll ensure that the family of Mr. James Oyugi Onyango is able to give their kin a decent burial when they leave Quran. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
If members will be brief, we'll give more members. So let's go to the majority leader, and then I'll give a few other members, but they should be very brief, please.
Mr. Speaker, I totally agree with Honorable Ocheng. Speaker, we are in an emergency situation, a pandemic. But still, I'm sure some communities and religions have elaborate way of burying their dead. We can reduce the time factor. But there are certain things that must be done for the dead person to be accorded according to one's faith or culture. I'm happy the Muslim community have consulted the Ministry of Health. We have reduced on the number of people who can go to the grave, but we have not compromised on the procedure. So I think we must balance. And finally, Mr. Speaker, on the matter of Honorable Cheng has raised, Mr. Speaker, in my opinion, that body must be exhumed. The people who did that at night, we watch on TV, the children crying. Speaker, you cannot violate the law using COVID. So I think the people who did that must be held accountable. If the deputy governor of Kilifi is facing criminal charges, what about those who did that incident in Siaya? And I'm sure for us, the Muslim community, we usually bury our dead the same day, after 2 hours. But there are certain rituals that we must be allowed. It's happening in UK, Muslims are dying in UK, in the US. So, Mr. Speaker, let us not use COVID-19 to break the law. And that's why I was saying the Minister for Health every day speaks without a mask. It's about the social distance. The President does. Media people do. That is why this House of 349 has got less than 40. So you cannot tell me, I sit here, I should just even close my eyes with this mask. And by the way, the mask being provided for Honorable Chisin Baride, the mask being provided by Parliament is a surgical mask. You should have the one I am having, which you can use every day. You wash it. So, Mr. Speaker, I agree. I think going forward, Mr. Speaker, I mean, I'm not using an industrial, and there's nothing wrong anyway. If I use industrial. But I think, Mr. Speaker, let us respect religion, let us respect culture, let us respect COVID-19 protocols, and all of us together and save lives.
Let us respect everything, including putting the mask correctly. Yeah, I mean, don't let us not play around with that. You know, many people have done that and suffered the consequences. I do not think as a parliament, we should be saying that, then there is no, I mean, if we are saying that because of social distancing, we do not need we don't need to use the mask, then why put one in the first place? Yeah, so let's be serious on that particular bit. On the issue of following other issues, those are very good. Now, I am trying to look out for members. Please, if we could get a few other members, I cannot be able to recognize them, you'll forgive me. It's easy to recognize Honorable Nyasuna because of the, yeah, so let's have
Thank
you
you,
there.
Mr. Speaker.
And,
Mr. Speaker.
luckily you are top on the list in the intervention slot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of masks and the issue of the messaging as far as COVID-19 is concerned, we cannot afford mixed messages for our people. We cannot afford to give mixed messages. If you say you can either have your mask or not have it, this is what the people out there will follow. And the biggest example on this issue of masks is the CS for Health, who gives briefings every day. He has to have his mask on so that the people can follow. Because people raise that question all the time. Because if we say, if social distancing is this mask, don't wear your mask, we will start to give mixed messages, and our people will get lost in the process, and we will lose lives in the process. So that matter must be noted by our health officials, and the issue of removing their mask or putting it on their chin and so on cannot be accepted. Mr. Speaker, on the second matter is the matter of the protocol as far as quarantine is concerned. Because recently we had a lot of confusion in Homa Bay, Mr. Speaker, because of the issue of how do you quarantine, what is the protocol for quarantine? You saw somebody who was in a quarantine facility saying, I am here, I am not sick, I don't know what I'm doing here, Mr. Speaker. If there is a protocol that somebody has to be spoken to, has to be cancelled when they are taken to a quarantine center, that must be followed, Mr. Speaker. And what happens in a quarantine center, Mr. Speaker? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We were supposed to start at 11 o'clock, the real business. But I see the interest of members. I'll give you 7 more minutes, and then we will eat into the main business, and members must only speak for 1 minute. I can see how much of an interest you have. So, Honorable Omboko Milemba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you for this particular chance. First, on the matter of masks, which has been spoken on by several people, it is very important we show a good example without too much argument. One time, there was a president of America who was old, and he thought he should show the Americans that he's very young. He went for his particular inaugural address with a shirt, and he passed on. You can research that. So on issues of the mask, let's just be respectful. Number two, on the question that was answered by the chair, especially on masks, telling Kenyans that we want this quality of masks, don't buy those ones that are on the streets and etc. and etc. Outside there, Honorable Speaker, people are creating laws and executing them without approval properly by Parliament or any other institution that should do so. Police are arresting people for not having masks. So we cannot be talking about certain quality of masks when people outside there are being arrested, and the best they can do is to even get a rag and put on their noses and mouths for them to survive. So let's actually open up the making of masks to everybody so that we can proceed.
You have gone beyond the 1 minute. I will give more members, but I'll give CAB, of course, an opportunity to, because even the leader of minority will get you up. But let's start with Honorable Junet. Very quickly, 1 minute, please.
Mr. Speaker, the issue that I want to raise with the statement that was issued by the chair lady is she has not told us whether dead bodies transmit COVID.
Yes.
Whether dead bodies can infect people. If you touch a dead body, whether you'll be infected with the coronavirus. So that because, Mr. Speaker, the way the majority leader has said, in our culture of Muslim community, before you are buried, you must be washed properly. So I wanted to know from her or from the person who gave us a statement whether dead bodies that have died of COVID can transmit coronavirus, Mr. Speaker, by touching a dead body like this, whether you can be infected. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, let the president, all the ministers, whether it's health, whether it's security, whether it's energy, let them put on their mask when they are addressing Kenyans, Mr. Speaker.
Correct.
They are not exempted. They can get corona even there, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, let everyone, including members of parliament, everyone put on their mask, whether in the public place, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Okay, let's have Honorable Kagu. You will appreciate the difficulty in us getting you to have the... What number of the seat you are in? 170.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to first appreciate and thank the chairperson for Health Committee for the statement that he has just responded. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that she didn't cover the area that I had asked about the disposal of the mask. Because she has agreed that the community can use surgical masks, which are disposable. Mr. Speaker, if you go to Bagathi, and we saw it in the social media, people are going there collecting those disposable masks which are being used in the hospitals, wash them, and then they are distributing them to... Yes, we saw it in the social media. So my request was, can we allow the Kenyans...
Your time is over. Honorable members, I actually noticed that in the afternoon today we'll be having a general motion on COVID. So many members, as possible, should be able to speak to it. Probably I'll give the leader of minority, and that would be it. But most of you will have an opportunity in the afternoon, because we really need to move to the substantive issues.
Mr. Speaker, in the interest of time, just two quick ones. Number one, on this issue of Mr. Yugi, or the late Yugi, I just want to ask the committee to make sure that that his body is buried properly. That was not a grave, in my view. Even if we leave out all the other cultures and everything else, we can compromise. But on the issue of the grave, the late Oyugi must be buried properly. And that I think the committee can do. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I want to speak to this issue that Omboko Mlemba has raised. I think this is the time that we should avoid populism. Let us talk to our people. It is not a question of looking for votes. The various regulations are in this house, and we will pass them. If the government has said that people should wear masks, they should wear masks. Let them wash hands.
So give him more a minute.
This question of saying we don't have even soap, Mr. Speaker, that the government should buy soap. Yes, I know we can facilitate, we can help, but people can also buy local soap as they've been buying. The bar soap, let them wash their hands. Let us ask our people to keep distance. If they don't, let them be arrested. Even if it is a matter of no votes, we should not look for votes at the expense of the lives of our people. Because if they all die, who will vote for us tomorrow, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, I want to repeat again that the government must crack the whip on people. This idea of talking a lot about human rights, there is no human right without humanity. If people are all dead, where will you talk about human rights? We are living in extraordinary times, and I want to be on record that our people must listen. This idea of doing stupid things, congregating together, drinking, as if the world is coming to an end if you don't drink alcohol.
Okay, that is well said. Now we'll go to the next order, please. Next order.
Order number 8, procedural motion, limitation of debate.
Leader of Majority.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, notwithstanding the resolution of the House of February 2020, each speech in a debate during a sitting of the House on Wednesday, April 29, and Wednesday, April 6, shall be limited to as follows: a maximum of 1 hour and 30 minutes, with not more than 15 minutes for the mover. Mr. Speaker, I want to amend it to 10 minutes for the mover in moving, and also amend it 10 minutes in reply, and 5 minutes in replying, and a maximum of 5 minutes for other members speaking, except, Mr. Speaker, I want to amend for the chairs of the committee, because they have got something to tell. Maybe them will give them 10 minutes, and that priority be given, be accorded according to the Leader of Majority, Leader of Minority, and chairpersons of committee, that all members, every member speaks 5 minutes, the mover speaks for 10 minutes, and 5 minutes replying, and the chair speaks for 10 minutes, Speaker. Speaker, this procedural motion before the House is meant to guide the House on a manner in which we debate and will be carried out in today's sitting. Speaker, we have also agreed in the House Business Committee, and has been confirmed to government, that on Wednesday when we are sitting, we are not complying, or we have been exempted from the curfew. So today we will sit until 7. All the parliamentary staff and members who will be in the chamber will have free flow to their homes. That I can confirm, and the Speaker will make a communication, I think, in the afternoon. So I beg to move. But when you that exemption means you go home. You don't go anywhere else. You know, please go home. And as Honorable Badi said, please let's protect our children, let's protect our families, let's protect Kenyans. Without many remarks, I want to ask Honorable Bandi, who was in the House Business.
Honorable Badi.
I second, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, the Chair of Budget, you will have an opportunity immediately after this procedural motion so you'll have your time after this. I've said after this. So, honorable members, I propose a question which is that pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 97-1, notwithstanding the resolutions of the House on February 18, 2020, each speech in any debate during the sitting of the House on Wednesday, April 22nd, Wednesday, April 29th, and Wednesday, May 6, 2020, shall be limited as follows: a maximum of 1 hour 30 minutes, with not more than 10 minutes for the mover. Members be clear with that. 10 minutes because the leader has himself amended it. 10 minutes for the mover moving, and 5 minutes in replying, and maximum of 5 minutes for any member speaking. And that priority in speaking be accorded to the Leader of Majority Party, the Leader of Minority Party, and the chairperson of the relevant committee in that order. I put the question, which is that pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 97-1, and notwithstanding the resolution of the House of February 18, 2020, each speech in any debate during the sitting of the House on Wednesday, April 22nd, Wednesday, April 29th, Wednesday, May 6th, shall be limited as follows: a maximum of 1 hour and 30 minutes, with not more than 10 minutes for the mover in moving, and 5 minutes in replying, and a maximum of 5 minutes for any other member speaking, and priority in speaking shall be accorded to the Leader of Majority Party, Leader of Minority Party, and the chairperson of the relevant committee in that order. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of our contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Next order. Oh, next, we will have the chairperson budget to lay that particular document he has. He's late, but I have given him an opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Wednesday, 22nd April 2020. Report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the Senate amendments to the Division of Revenue Bill 2020. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. So we go to the next order. And as we do that, honorable members, the masks that you are putting on are procured from KEMSA and Ministry of Health. So you are definitely safe.
Order number 9, the Tax Laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 3 of 2020, second reading.
Leader of Majority Party, you have your 10 minutes.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to rise. I rise to move the second reading of the Tax Laws Amendment Bill 2020, National Assembly Bill number 8 of 2020. Mr. Speaker, this bill seeks to amend various tax laws, among them being the Income Tax Act of 470, the Value Added Tax number 35 of 2013, the Excise Duty number 23 of 2015, the Tax Procedure Act number 29 of 2015, the Miscellaneous Fees and Levies Act number 29 of 2016, and the Kenya Revenue Act number 2 of 1995. Mr. Speaker, this bill has of particular interest and great importance to the people of this great nation, and the bill contains measures, deliberate measures geared towards cushioning Kenyans from the economic effects of COVID-19 pandemic, which has not only affected Kenya, but affected the whole world. So this bill both cushions Kenyans and at the same time tries to make sure that the economy of our nation survives despite what is going on. And Mr. Speaker, this bill is a testament and a testimony of our cardinal constitutional function as provided for in Article 95 of the Constitution, which is to resolve issues of concern to the people of this great nation. So that is the difference between us and our colleagues in the Senate. Because these tax laws, these measures can only be done by this House. The supplementary budget can only be done by this House. And Mr. Speaker, for these reasons, and amid the COVID-19 pandemic and the huge challenges it has presented by threatening even the economy and the very livelihood of our very hard-working citizens, today this House stands to ensure that we put in place measures that shall keep all Kenyans of all walks of life safe and keep on moving. And I'm proud of the National Assembly because we stood to be counted during these difficult times. Speaker, if I go to the bill seeks to amend the income tax to, among other things, reduce the individual top tax rates and residents' corporate tax rate. What does it do? One, for the individual, this will increase the disposable income for the individuals and in turn enhance consumption. And for the corporate, it will cushion, it gives investors some investment brief because we are reducing it from 30 to 25% so that it's meant to spur growth, so that companies don't go under. We must protect our companies, we must protect the economy, and we must protect Kenyan individuals and put some relief in their pockets. This bill, Mr. Speaker, also contains amendments to the income tax by replacing the second schedule with effect in terms of simplification of the schedule, but even more importantly, it introduces investment allowances to be deducted on capital expenditure. Speaker, this bill also proposes to amend, of course, the income tax in relation to payee by amending the personal relief for each of the tax bonds at the rate of 25% instead of the rate of 30%. Speaker, I really want to thank the committee led by Honorable Limo. They set from Thursday to Saturday evening until 7, and they have looked at this bill, and they have cushioned this bill against certain items that the Ministry of Finance wanted to do. They have saved Kenyans, they have saved the farmers, the dairy farmers, and all dairy milk. They have saved the feed manufacturers. They have saved fertilizer. Because today, as we speak, Mr. Speaker, the only activity going on in Kenya is in the rural areas. It's agriculture. I mean, nothing is going on. People are going back to the rural areas. So he has saved all the amendments to the agricultural sector, and I'm sure he's going to explain more. But Mr. Speaker, let us view this bill in a way, because if government gives relief on one side, it must find how to get money to pay the gap. So the committee has really looked at this bill, and they have balanced it. And Mr. Speaker, this bill also tries to amend the excess duty and miscellaneous fees and levies act by removing exemptions on certain non-essential goods such as samples. Mr. Speaker, last night when I was reading this bill, something, came into my mind, that this mask we are wearing, this mask we are telling Kenyans to buy, carries a duty of 25% plus 18% VAT. So, Mr. Speaker, I've asked the Speaker that this afternoon I'm going to move an amendment. I'm going to move an amendment on mask to remove both the 25% duty and to remove the 18% duty, so that the mask can come as cheap as possible. You cannot tell Kenyans to have masks, and one mask is going to cost between 80 to 90 shillings. So this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to bring an amendment. I have spoken to the Minister for Finance. He's in agreement, and government is in agreement, that we have realized that in the old act, both import duty and VAT were on mask. And Mr. Speaker, and I mean also all the other, they're called the PPP. PPPs already have been, I think, catered for in this bill. So what has only not been catered for, which was an oversight, was a mask. But Mr. Speaker, and I've said it last week, and I want to agree with Honorable Bandi, we must follow. It's not about, jokes. We must follow the protocols. But Mr. Speaker, there are Kenyans who cannot buy food today. They have no jobs. They can't even buy the soap Honorable Bandi is talking about. People in settlements. And Mr. Speaker, the President has said there will be enough food and they will be cushioned. We want that money very fast. When this House passes a supplementary budget, we want Kenyans who are living in the low settlement areas. They must be given food. The Nairobi Metropolitan Services with the county of Nairobi and other counties, Mr. Speaker, they must provide food even to the Muslims, poor Muslims who are starting Ramadan maybe next week or end of this week on Thursday. So it's a time to give in, even as members of parliament. We must use our emergency fund. We must use our emergency fund in the CDF. Our women reps should use the emergency fund. We must look for those very vulnerable members of our society and give them whatever. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I beg to move and ask Honorable Limo. And Mr. Speaker, I want you to give Honorable Limo extra more than 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes.
You have just moved the...
No, the way I moved, Mr. Speaker, is not the way you put it in the question. If you go to the hand side. But
anyway,
I want you to do it administratively.
I will see what he has if he really runs short of time. Honorable Limo.
All right, Honorable Speaker, I take this opportunity to thank you for this opportunity to contribute and second the majority leader on this particular important law which we are making in this House, which is a tax law amendment bill. Mr. Speaker, Before I start, I want to appreciate Kenyans that during this COVID period, they have actually tried as much as possible to follow government guidelines, and that is why Kenya is among the countries which have been rated to be really fighting this COVID vigorously. Mr. Speaker, I want to encourage the communities in the villages, especially in the villages, to as much as possible to try to follow the guidelines, as well as still working. When we talk about working at home, it means even working in your farms, as long as you maintain social distancing, because we need the people to produce food. Mr. Speaker, I also stand with the Kenyans who have lost loved ones, especially during the flooding and the landslide. Mr. Speaker, this is a serious thing. Mr. Speaker, I want to really appreciate the officers on this particular.
What is it? What is it?
I know Honorable Moses Kuria has not been around for long, but you cannot have another member standing when another member is on his feet, Mr. Speaker. It's a standing order. And social distance, he's talking here, Kiambu politics, when we are discussing serious issues.
No. Well, I would not want that to be an open debate, but just to confirm that, honorable members, let's take this issue of social distancing and putting on of our masks seriously. Proceed.
All right, I hope you'll allow me some time with the interruption. Mr. Speaker, I was actually standing with Kenyans who have had lost loved ones, and during this COVID period, due to flooding and landslide, especially in the Marakwet areas, and indeed in my neighboring constituency, Kipkelion West. I stand with them. Mr. Speaker, I want to appreciate the following officers for the support which they gave us. We did this, and I want to start by appreciating the members of my committee, Finance and National Planning. They really sacrificed, and they appeared in several meetings. We had a total of 9 sittings in a row, and in fact, almost 80%, Mr. Speaker, attended. Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Limo, you know you are a very effective chair. But please, let's leave this issue of niceties for now. Go to the meat, because you have a problem with time. I intend to add you a few minutes, but please, go to the substantive thing.
Mr. Speaker,
yes,
I don't want to repeat especially what the majority leader has talked on, Mr. Speaker. However, I want to concentrate on the bill, how it was processed. Mr. Speaker, this bill was actually brought in by the government because of trying to reduce the impact of COVID pandemic on Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, the President pronounced himself, and he did give some measures to be done. However, in line with the financial management, Mr. Speaker, the National Treasury had to come up with various tax measures to ensure that both the supply and demand are addressed. Mr. Speaker, this bill proposed several measures, among them, also, of course, to cushion Kenyans who are earning below 24,000 against paying taxes. Mr. Speaker, that affected the bands, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, it also gave some benefit to the top rate earners. Mr. Speaker, the President also pronounced himself that the government is also appreciating that this COVID will not spare the corporate companies, and therefore they are given 5%. And therefore, to raise the various revenues required to fund this, Mr. Speaker, the government, of course, had to propose various tax measures, touching on income tax, VAT, and even a presumptive tax, which was there, and turnover tax. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, we went through all these proposals, Mr. Speaker, and I want to confirm the following, Mr. Speaker, that we went through several memorandums which we received from the various stakeholders, because the stakeholders was given 14 days to reply, to respond to the proposals given by the government. And we received over 70 memorandums from the public, Mr. Speaker. Among them, the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, Mr. Speaker, the Kenya Manufacturers Association, Mr. Speaker, the various stakeholders in the Nairobi Securities Exchange, the Law Society of Kenya, the Capital Markets Authority, the Institute of Certified Public Accountants, the Kenya Association of Air Operators, the Agricultural Society of Kenya, among others. I have said over 70. Mr. Speaker, in response to those, Mr. Speaker, and together with considering as a committee on finance, considering the impact of these proposals on Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, we agreed with the National Treasury because there is need to raise more revenue to fund the various measures taken by the government, which is in line with what the President said. However, Mr. Speaker, some of the proposals, if you look at the bill, were touching on essential commodities, Mr. Speaker, and I want to confirm the following, that we have taken some action to ensure that we safeguard both the revenue,
Your
which
5
is being
minutes
raised,
are over, but
Mr.
I'm adding you
Speaker,
a few more.
and
But your 5 minutes are over.
I confirm the following, Mr. Speaker, so that the members will really understand, so that they don't dwell on it for long. The essential commodities touching on bread, milk, and medicaments, we have saved Kenyans. There is no increment which will happen, because this will cause more problems to the Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, the only sector which is still growing despite the COVID, Mr. Speaker, is the general agriculture, Mr. Speaker, and therefore we have saved fertilizer from being taxed and all agricultural implements and pesticides, which was going to go higher if we could have agreed with this proposal. Mr. Speaker, to save the tourism and transport sector, Mr. Speaker, we have also saved several proposals from being implemented, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we have been, in one way or the other, as Parliament, accused that we are not responding to the COVID and therefore saving Kenyans. We are actually aware that several businesses have closed down, including bars, hotels, transport, like matatus, who have really packed because of these restrictions of movement. Mr. Speaker, the airlines who have they have grounded their aircrafts and all that, Mr. Speaker. We know that some of these Kenyans have taken loans. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, we are proposing several amendments to the Banking Act to protect enforcement of securities which you have put in place when you are taking a loan, so that banks cannot sell properties during this COVID period. Mr. Speaker, we are also suspending listing on CRB, so that members who are not able to pay loans at this period are not affected. Mr. Speaker, finally, we will be proposing measures to safeguard the interest of employees against being sacked, Mr. Speaker, and therefore we are proposing that the employers will not sack employees at this time. Even if they are not able to pay, they enter into an agreement to go on unpaid leave in lieu of being sacked, Mr. Speaker. And I urge this House to really support these amendments, which will be moving in the afternoon. Mr. Speaker, I think finally, Mr. Speaker, because of time, I just want to thank my committee and thank the Speaker and the clerk and the majority leader for the support during this time, including the Cabinet Secretary of National Treasury and his team for the support during the processing of this team. Otherwise, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to assure this House that we are aware of the fears you have, and we have taken into account those fears to safeguard the interest of the government in raising revenue and also safeguard the interest of Kenyans. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to second this bill.
Very well. Well done. I therefore propose a question which is that the Tax Law Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 3 of 2020, be now read a second time. And the first shot, rightfully, for two reasons, of course, is the minority leader. He's a good financial expert, and at the same time is the minority leader, so he has a right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I support the discussion on this bill and the approval of the same, Mr. Speaker, I just hope that members will restrict themselves to discussing the tax laws, because there will also be supplementary budget, and there will be a motion on other issues. Mr. Speaker, the main reason for the proposal to amend various tax laws, that is Income Tax Act, the value-added tax, the excise duty, tax procedures, and miscellaneous fees and levies, is to help alleviate the negative impact of the pandemic by enhancing the disposable income, especially for the workers, and also to protect businesses. So the main reason for this are two. Number one is to put money into the pockets of Kenyans, and number two, to protect the businesses and to protect jobs. Mr. Speaker, first of all, the amendments to the Income Tax Act are as follows. Number one is the turnover tax. The turnover tax, Mr. Speaker, is being reduced from 3 to 1%. And again, there is even a change in the threshold of the turnover tax. Currently, the turnover tax is considered as from 0 to 5 million shillings turnover per year. The amendment is seeking to change that from 500,000 to upwards of 15 million shillings, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, that is targeting enterprises, putting more money into the pockets of enterprises at this difficult time. Number two is the pay as you earn, which everyone, I'm sure, is aware that we are now seeking to have those who are earning below 24,000 shillings, Mr. Speaker, to be exempt from paying or to pay zero tax. And at the same time, also increasing the personal relief by 992 shillings from 1,408 to 2,400. There is also even the changes in the tax bands. Whereas presently we have the minimum at 10%, that is going to move to 50%, and then the maximum is going to be reduced from 30% to 25%. Mr. Speaker, this largely is going to help those who are, to put money into the pockets of Kenyans, but only those who are in the formal employment. Mr. Speaker, that is a caveat. And then we are aware that very few of us, very few Kenyans are in formal employment, and therefore those who are going to benefit are largely not so much, Mr. Speaker, but it is going to improve their purchasing power. Mr. Speaker, there are amendments on the allowable deductions for tax purposes, which I may lack time to discuss. Investment deductions, also under income tax, additional taxation on non-residents, Mr. Speaker, is also captured here to provide money to plug the hole that is going to be left. But, Mr. Speaker, my concern was with the proposed amendments from the ministry regarding value-added tax. But I'm happy that the committee has picked on this. Mr. Speaker, the proposal to remove the following items from zero rating, like the supply of ordinary bread, was going to affect the ordinary Kenyan. Mr. Speaker, the inputs for the manufacture of agricultural pest control products, materials for the manufacture of solar batteries, we know we want to go green economy, and agricultural pest control products. These are issues that, Mr. Speaker, we could not allow. Fertilizers and many other things, like the medical equipment. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that the committee has actually picked on this. But, Mr. Speaker, this is also a warning to the government and the treasury that don't give Kenyans with one hand and take with the other, and especially the poor Kenyans. This is a time to cushion the low-bottom segments of our society. Mr. Speaker, the amendment proposed under excise duty is basically removing the separation between the imported and locally manufactured sugar. And I agree with this, Mr. Speaker, because it was very difficult to determine which one is locally produced manufactured sugar and which one is imported. And therefore, it had the effect of flooding, of causing a lot of confusion and distortion and unnecessary trade practice. The amendment to the Tax Procedures Act, Mr. Speaker, again, this one targets basically by appointing banks to act as revenue agents for the government. I think what the government has in mind is the issue of Nairobi County, and they are using this to help have banks to collect money on behalf of the Nairobi Metropolitan Committee. But there is a problem. There is a reduction of penalty for late submission of turnover tax from 5,000 to 1,000. I don't know why this should be passed.
Your time is over.
Mr. Speaker, can I have 1 or 2 more minutes?
Just 1 minute, but
Thank you,
I'll
Mr.
add
Speaker.
no
Mr.
other
Speaker,
members.
I wanted just to say, I hope the committee has brought an amendment to this. There is no need to relax tax penalty. Those who are supposed to be faced with tax penalty are people who have failed to pay tax, and they should pay tax. These are people who need no favor, no mercy, and they should pay even a higher tax. So, a higher penalty. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks or few remarks, I want to support.
Okay. Now, I'll give Honorable Abdullah Sheikh if he wants to speak to this. Honorable Abdullah Sheikh, is in the house?
Yes.
In the meantime, where is he? Please,
I'm here.
Where are you? Oh, you are at the very back.
Yes.
So, Honorable Abdullah Sheikh, as you speak, we are also going to give Honorable Makali and Honorable Raso from the holding areas. So they should come closer, please. Proceed, Honorable Sheikh.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think these tax amendment laws, or bills for that matter, are very crucial. However, we need to be cognizant of the fact that as the people's representatives, we care both for employers and employees. And that as we go on with this kind of amendments, let us remember that both the employer and the employees are Kenyans. Let's not look at a situation whereby we force companies to go under because we want money or resources in the pockets of employees. What happens if these companies go down? Who is going to pay them? The government cannot ultimately absorb all these employees. So we don't need to have populist-like bills that ultimately will not see the light of day in terms of implementation. In this House, we have made several and previous regulations. Some of them have been annulled when we found it fit that they are not in the best interest of employees and employers. However, even when certain things are annulled by this parliament, the executive goes around to implement. And then we ask ourselves, what is our role as the people's representatives? Some of these laws that we want to amend are punitive, both to the employer and the employees. So we must be cognizant of the fact that as we want to help the economy, are we hurting ourselves more? It is the government, or for this matter, the executive, that is supposed to cushion Kenyans. Before this pandemic, things were working in order. Government has been collecting taxes. So it is the government's turn to cushion Kenyans, and especially employees. We can't have firms being told, retain an employer, yet that firm is going under. So let us do the balance between the two. Save the economy, save the employer, and save the ordinary employee. But just coming up and then going through with whatever the executive wants, and then we just come and then just pass through, or rubber stamp for that matter. Let's remind ourselves that we are members of parliament representing the ordinary Kenyans. We are not part of the executive. We are part of the government in the sense that we are a legislature. So let us avoid issues of just trying to praise whatever you receive from Treasury or from ministries and say it's good for Kenyans. Sometimes it's not. We speak for Kenyans, and therefore let us be wary of some of these amendments that come into place. So for me, I think most of these bills, or what I've read through, are not very, very good for the country and for people of Kenya. So let us see how best we can cushion while looking at the welfare of both Kenyans, whether employee or employers. Thank you very much.
All right, Honorable Raso. Honorable Raso is from the other holding areas.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I beg to speak on this particular bill. I think what we need to take cognizance of is extraordinary times calls for extraordinary measures. I'm speaking to this bill particularly on the premise that Kenyans must have food on the table. Mr. Speaker, Kenyans must be safe. After COVID-19, Kenya must stand on its feet. These are some of the things which we must look at as we go through this bill. Mr. Speaker, I just want to borrow quickly from what Honorable Badi said. We cannot give from the right only to take away from the left. We have said that pay as you earn, those who earn less than 24,000 are exempt. But at the same time, we are likely to impose taxation on some foodstuff, on some basic things, because today I believe petroleum product is no longer an exotic stuff. It is actually a basic commodity. Mr. Speaker, there are things which we must agree that bread must be zero rated. You cannot put bread and chocolate on the same side, because how many Kenyans actually consume chocolate? Mr. Speaker, the other issue is about zero rating. I believe once we classify all those basic commodities that goes to the ordinary household, I believe in this bill must be zero rated. And then at the same time, I see that there are issues like buildings. You say construction. I think as far as we are concerned at this time, we are not talking about constructing anything. We are about saving Kenya. With those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support. Thank you.
I had, very well, I had given Honorable Makali. If he's not in, then I'll go to Honorable Kaluma, because that is the one who is top on the list here.
I thank you most sincerely, Mr. Speaker, for recognizing me and giving me the chance to contribute. Mr. Speaker, in the difficult situation we are, we had a challenge of unemployed Kenyans well before COVID came in. Mr. Speaker, the number of those unemployed Kenyans are increasing every day. Look at even the ladies from Kibra and other slums who hang around the residences of the middle, lower, and generally middle class, seeking even to wash clothes. They cannot even enter those homes now to wash today. So they're going back home without anything. My understanding of how to deal with a situation where we are is that we would seek to get whatever we can get from people who are in employment and earning to help those who are either out of employment or vulnerable. They have nothing at all. And Mr. Speaker, if we don't approach it that way, then let me tell you, when conditions become insufferable for people, they'll go to search for means wherever they believe it is there. So you will have the people from Kibra going to Karen. You will have the people from Madare going to Mudaiga. You will have the people from Kawangware and Kangemi going into Lavington, Kileleshwa, Kilimani, and Westlands. And you'll know where they'll be headed next once they are finished with those people. That is why, Mr. Speaker, I'm suggesting that for those who can give something, let us squeeze them more. I fear, therefore, Mr. Speaker, that in as much as we are zero rating the basic commodities, which is a good thing, we are taking away something like income tax from that lower bracket, and we are lowering the income tax amount or percentage from 30 to 25. Mr. Speaker, if you lower for me income tax as a state officer, who is the only person whose job is secured in these difficult times. How is that vulnerable person going to survive? I want to say that it may be suitable that because we are employed in government like those many others whose jobs are secured in this situation, we can see benefit in reducing something like in income tax from 30 to 25. It is not something that is going to be helpful because the government still needs money, even to sustain our remuneration, Mr. Speaker. I doubt there is a nation or any donor who is going to give us money to sustain, the salaries we are running the way we have been doing. Mr. Speaker, this is the reason as to why, when we proceeded last week, I also, objected to the reduction, Mr. Speaker, of VAT from 16 to 14%. We must see a way where people who can buy something pay what they have been paying or even more, so that we have a bracket to provide for those who cannot have anything at all. That is the only time, Mr. Speaker, we will have money to protect, Mr. Speaker, the health workers we are talking about. Without contemplating debate, I'm seeing the provisions we are having for them. PPEs, some risk allowance. We need to employ more. Where are we getting this money from, Mr. Speaker, if we are also proposing that government forgoes the only reliable sources of revenue